I want to invite you then to turn to the book of Ruth in the Old Testament, Ruth chapter 3, for our reading this morning. It's page 223 in the Black Bibles, page 223 if you're using a pew or a windowsill Bible, or large print, 264. As you turn that up, it's great to be coming back to Ruth, isn't it? I know many of you have been reading at least one of the books that we recommended, Sinclair Ferguson's book on Ruth, or John Piper's book. We've had a little break from Ruth, so some of you have finished your books. You've worked ahead. You know everything that's coming already this morning. I want to commend to you, just like we had those two books that we were recommending, Struan has wonderfully updated our bookstall for Christmas. So some of you will have seen this on email. If you hadn't had a chance to do that, I want to encourage you this morning, get a cup of tea and coffee and visit the bookshelf at the back in the book room, and there's a wonderful range of resources for us. Obviously lots of Christmas things, Advent devotionals, but many, many other books as well. That will be available each week from here on. I want to encourage you to have a look at that. Well, we're coming back to this beautiful book, a book that this week I read someone described as the littlest gospel. Ruth is the littlest gospel. Ruth chapter 3, then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to Ruth, "My daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Is not Boaz our relative, with whose young woman you were? See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Wash, therefore, and anoint yourself, and put on your cloak, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. But when he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do." And she replied, "All that you say I will do." So she went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother-in-law had commanded her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. Then she came softly and uncovered his feet and lay down. At midnight the man was startled and turned over, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. He said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer." And he said, "May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first, in that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask. For all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. And now it is true that I am a redeemer. Yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. Remain tonight, and in the morning, if he will redeem you, good, let him do it. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then as the Lord lives, I will redeem you. Lie down until the morning." So she lay at his feet until the morning, but arose before one could recognize another. And he said, "Let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor." And he said, "Bring the garment you are wearing and hold it out." So she held it, and he measured out 6 measures of barley and put it on her. Then she went into the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "How did you fare, my daughter?" Then Ruth told her all that the man had done for her, saying, "These 6 measures of barley he gave to me, for he said to me, 'You must not go back empty-handed to your mother-in-law.'" She replied, "Wait, my daughter, until you learn how the matter turns out. For the man will not rest, but will settle the matter today." Amen. A few weeks ago, when we began the book of Ruth together, I said that I want us to leave here each Sunday morning with one phrase echoing in our ears and resounding in our hearts. Do you remember what the phrase is? Behold what love can do. Behold what love can do. That is the message of this wonderful story. Friends, look what love can do. Look what love can do. Running through every episode, every chapter, almost every interaction in the book of Ruth is one particular word, and it's the word kindness. And for you and I today, we think kind means nice. Kind people are nice people, but not in this story. In this story and in the Bible, God's kindness means his loyal love. Kindness means loyal love. It is covenant love. It is hesed love, steadfast love. It is love that sticks with the stuck. That's the definition of it. That's what we're enjoying here together. Ruth is the littlest gospel. And so this morning in chapter 3, friends, here is what it looks like and here is what it feels like when loving kindness just keeps spreading. Well, when it grows, when it spreads from mother-in-law to daughter-in-law, when it spreads from man to woman, from woman to man, when loving kindness spreads from field to field and home to home, from generation to generation. Do you know what happens when that happens? Darkness turns to light. The darkness light. The lost return, the voiceless heard, the mourner now rejoicing, the mountains shake, the world awake, creation all composing. The sad untrue, the earth renewed, the song has found its singer, the darkness light, the dead alive. You are my Redeemer. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. I wonder if you noticed as I read the text for us, I wonder if you noticed that the decisive moment in our story happens at midnight. Verse 8. In other words, it happens in the middle of the night, the darkest point of the night, the blackest part of the night. We're meant to read it and think, in this darkest hour, what will happen now? Will what happens next blacken the night? Or will what happens next mean that the morning dawns on purity and the beauty of loyal love? This is the decisive moment in the book of Ruth. A few weeks ago I said that if you were to give me a paintbrush, put a paintbrush in my hand, you don't want to do that ever, but imagine you did, and said, David, paint for us a picture of a perfect world. I said a few weeks ago, if I could paint, I would paint a world in the shade. I'd paint a world in the shade. Do you remember chapter 2, verse 12? What Boaz says to Ruth? You have come to God, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. If I could paint, I would paint a world with people living in the shadow, under the shadow of God's great wings, God's good wings. That is where life is. That is where perfection and beauty is. Do you know that, friends, this morning? I hope you know that. You need shade in your life. You need shade in your life. We've had to do it this morning, sadly, haven't we, with these blinds, the light coming through. You need protection. You need shelter. Don't go it alone, friend, this morning. Making up your own rules about life, making up your own decisions about how you're going to do things. No, the book of Ruth says, live your entire life tucked inside the shadow of God's covenant love. Tuck yourself this morning inside His Word. I want this morning the Word to wash over you and to enfold you in God's love. Hide yourself in it. Shelter within His covenant. Live and die in the light inside these wings. Back in Ruth chapter 2, I said that Ruth chapter 2 is like a Garden of Eden again, isn't it? It's a new Eden. Chapter 2, if you just run your eyes over it, is men and women working the ground. Men and women working the ground in proper relationship to God and to each other. They are feeding off the fertile land. They are falling in love with each other in beautiful ways. And now here in chapter 3, friends, look how incredibly skillful our writer is. Chapter 3, if you scan your eyes from chapter 3, verse 1 down the lines, chapter 3 is all about Boaz and Ruth. They are named all the way through, Boaz and Ruth, Boaz and Ruth. But in verse 8, it changes. At midnight, the man was startled. And he turned over, and behold, a woman was there. A woman lay at his feet. Where else in the Bible was a man asleep and woken to find a woman there in his presence? A woman who immediately he names. This is Genesis chapter 2 again, all over again, isn't it? This is Eden. This is the sequel. This is the rerun. Adam falling into a deep sleep, and behold, there is a woman. We're meant to read this story this morning and think, will this couple work? What will their story be like? Oh, how beautiful the Bible. Friends, there is no storytelling like the Bible's storytelling. Look at the heading in your Bible, Ruth and Boaz at the threshing floor. Did you know that centuries later, Solomon's temple was built where? On a threshing floor. Did you know that outside Solomon's temple there were two great pillars, and one of the pillars was called Boaz? Oh, the storytelling in the Bible is beautiful. When loving kindness grows, friends, when life is being lived in the light, I'm going to give us 6 things to see. I don't know whether 6 things fills you with horror or dread. You think, I know, David, it's probably actually about 18 points. There are genuinely only 6 things, but I have limited myself to 6. The light falls out of this chapter in almost every verse. Here's the first thing. Life in the light is selfless in its care. Life in the light is selfless in its care. The first 2 things that I want to show us here are about the atmosphere of the chapter. These first 2 things, if you like, are the chapter's mood lights. They are the mood music in the background. Because there are things that we're meant to feel here. This is a profoundly, deeply beautiful story. Remember I said that the book of Ruth is all about the R's. It's about rebellion. It's about return. It's about refuge. It's about romance. It's about redemption. It's about renown. Here in chapter 3, as the romance between Boaz and Ruth comes into its own, the writer wants us to know that when God's people live in the light, they are marked by selfless care. You before me is the attitude of the believer. You before me. A few weeks ago I said that God's signature move, when he signs his name on a Christian's life, the signature move is death producing life. My death, your life. Could you smell that aroma in our passage in chapter 3? Just a couple of days ago, somebody sent me an email thanking me for how the shepherding of Trinity by its elders has a knock-on effect of shepherding in the church family. It was a very beautiful thing to say, a beautiful email to receive. Thank you for how the shepherding of the church family by its elders has a knock-on effect of shepherding through the rest of the church family. Friends, woe betide any congregation with selfless shepherds but selfish sheep. And the other way around, of course, isn't it as well? Woe betide any congregation with selfish shepherds and selfless sheep. But shepherds showing selfless care for the sheep, and sheep showing selfless care for sheep and for the shepherds. That is more precious than we can say, isn't it? Look at the atmosphere of this. Chapter 3, verse 1. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Look at what Ruth says, verse 5. She replied, "All that you say, I will do." Verse 6, so she went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother had commanded her. When Boaz wakes, verse 9, "I am Ruth, your servant." Verse 11, "I will do for you all that you ask." Verse 15, Boaz says to Ruth, "Bring your garment." Verse 16, she goes home and says to her mother-in-law all that the man had done for her. Look at Boaz in verse 17. "You must not go back empty." You must not go back empty-handed. Friends, to our shame, we read chapter 3 and we just nod along as if this is normal. But it is not normal, is it? It's not normal in this world. It's not normal in our world. In the days when the judges ruled and there was no king and every man did what was right in his own eyes, and there is a famine in the land because of it, and yet now as loving kindness grows, a pebble, a gospel pebble is being dropped in the pond and the ripples are spreading. It's like the mood music to the passage. Here are people whose literal waking thought is, "How may I serve you? How may I serve you?" How many thoughts do you have before breakfast? How many thoughts before breakfast are you instead of me? Life in the light is selfless in its care. Life in the light is beautiful in its bounty. Life in the light is beautiful in its bounty. Just turn up the volume a little bit. Turn up the light. I want you to notice as we begin the end of every chapter. Notice how at the end of every chapter there is a deliberate replacement of the emptiness and the barrenness. So look at chapter 1, verse 22. "Naomi returned, Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest." It's beautiful because of verse 21. Naomi says, "I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty." Ah, yes, but it is the beginning of harvest. It is the beginning of harvest. And it's as if God is saying, here's another R for you, reversal. Reversal. At the end of every chapter, there is a reversal. I'm going to swap your emptiness for fullness. Look at the verbs, chapter 2, verse 18. "And she took the food and went into the city. Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She brought out and gave her what was left." She gave to her. Look at chapter 3, verse 16. "Bring the garment you were wearing and hold it out." So she held it, and he measured out 6 measures. "And when she came to her mother-in-law, she told her all that the man had done for her, and she gave to me these for you." The little crack of light just gets bigger and bigger each chapter. A little bit of food for Naomi, a harvest, a little bit of food. Now at the end of chapter 3, 6 measures of food. What about the end of chapter 4, verse 16? "Ah, there is a child on the way." Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse, and the woman of the neighborhood gave him a name. Gave him a name. Friends, by the end of the book, the shaft of light has become a flood of light. Taking away has been replaced by giving. Emptiness has been replaced by fullness. And the greatest giving at the end of the book is a son. I'm going to read you a poem a little bit later in the sermon from Glenn Scrivener. It's dark in the Bible when Christmas is spoken. Always a bolt from the blue for the broken. It is always, always dark in our world before Christmas, friends. Always. It is always dark in our world before Christmas. For left to our own devices, we have Genesis chapter 3, don't we? The man rules over the woman. The woman tries to usurp the man, and the ground bears thorn and thistle. That there is famine and loss and disaster and despair. That is our world. And Ruth says to us, yes, but God sticks with the stuck. God sticks with the stuck. I want you to know that this morning, friends. That is what God does. He sticks with the stuck. And that there is only one way this story ends. Ruth chapter 3 ends. There's only one way my story ends and your story ends. Do you know how it ends? Your story will end one day with God giving and giving and giving and giving again. Every single story in the Old Testament, every little story, like the book of Ruth, is part of the big story that leads to Jesus coming. And when the Lord Jesus came, do you remember what he said? Blessed are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes. Truly, I tell you, he will dress himself for service. And he will have his servants recline at the table, and he will come and serve them. Do you believe that? Do you know that you will hear that from the Lord Jesus one day? More wine, David? More wine, Angela? More wine, Steve? For you, that he will give and give and give again. Life in the light is beautiful in its bounty. Number 3, life in the light is active in its faith. Life in the light is active in its faith. As we move now from the stage lighting to the characters on the stage, I want us to notice how active each of them are in pursuing the upright life of faith. That's my take on each of the characters here: Naomi, Boaz, Ruth. But I want you to look at verses 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Do you know that for many people, Naomi's actions here are very suspect, to say the least? Is this a manipulative mother-in-law behind the scenes? The ultimate scheming mother-in-law? At worst, taking things into her own hands, putting Ruth in danger on the threshing floor at night. Threshing floors were a place of danger. The book of Hosea says that the threshing floor were places for prostitution. Is she putting Ruth's reputation at risk, Boaz's reputation at risk? Is she encouraging a potentially illicit liaison here? Some commentators say this is Naomi refusing to trust God's providence, and instead Naomi, looking at things not moving quickly enough, is trying to turn the dials of history and engineer things for God. That's actually a very common reading of Naomi. I want to say it is not unwarranted, is it? There is a lot to commend that reading, actually. If you look at chapter 3, verse 14, look at Boaz's words to Ruth: "Let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor." There does seem to be danger here in some way. But I want to suggest that the best way to read this, the best way to read Naomi, is in the light of chapter 3, verse 1. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you?" Notice two things in that verse. She is seeking rest for Ruth. She's seeking shalom, peace, wholeness. She's seeking for Ruth the kind of Sabbath rest that God entered after creation, the kind of rest you get when you've made something beautiful and you stand back and you look at it and you say, that is good. That is a gift. Deep contentment, blessing, satisfaction. That is rest. And look, she's seeking that for Ruth so that it may be well with you. See, I think, friends, we're best to read chapter 3 as an example of cultural customs and marital proposals, a mother-in-law's active role, visiting a threshing floor at night, uncovering feet, spreading wings over someone. I think we're best to read all of this as things that are foreign to us and strange to us, but which we don't need to despise because of that. This is a marriage proposal from Ruth to Boaz. It is a marriage proposal thought up by her mother-in-law and enacted by Ruth. and it is not how we do things today. But of course, in our day, we have all our own little cultural foibles and traditions, don't we? Our own customs, our own ways of doing things, things that are particular to our own sex, to our own generation, to our own nationality. Even customs that are based on whether we are city-based or rural-based. I wonder if you know this morning that, did you know that Farmers Weekly, the magazine, used to run dating ads? And these were printed, I believe, until fairly recently. So you could get Farmers Weekly and you could get your copy and you could look at sheep and cows and tractors and potential spouses. I believe Farmers Weekly dating is still going, but it's now, of course, it's gone online, dating online. It's called Grounded. Okay, you get it? Or another Farmers Weekly dating ad is Muddy Matches. And things are different in that world for farmers than they are for us. Farmers do things differently. When those ads were running years ago, one farmer put an ad in Farmers Weekly: young farmer, arable only, seeks wife with baler. Send photo of baler. It's different, isn't it? It's different from how we do things. Yeah, I think we should see here that whatever Naomi has done here, there is no rebuke for her from Boaz. That's the key thing. There is no rebuke for Naomi or for Ruth from godly Boaz. Do you see it in chapter 3, verse 17? Take these 6 measures of barley to your mother-in-law. You must not go back empty to her. Now, Boaz is not daft. He knows Naomi is behind this. These measures of barley are like an engagement ring, aren't they? Here is the message loud and clear to Naomi: because of what you have done, your days of emptiness are coming to an end. And there is no rebuke for Ruth for what she does in the middle of the night. What she does, Boaz sees in it an even greater kindness to him than she has shown to her mother-in-law. This strange nighttime encounter, friends, we don't need to know or understand everything about the custom here to see that here are people planning, acting, proposing, pledging. Here are people doing loving things to each other because they know the God of love. That's the point. They are active in their faith. Boaz says to Ruth, chapter 2, verse 12, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. Ruth says to Boaz, chapter 3, verse 9, Boaz, won't you spread your wings over me? Isn't Ruth saying to Boaz, do you remember that prayer, Boaz, in chapter 2? How do you feel about being part of the answer to your own prayer? Might you be interested in being part of your answer to God, God's answer to me? If you cover me, Boaz, that would be a beautiful way of God covering me. Friends, this morning, do you know it is very, very true that some Christians lean on a shovel and pray for a ditch? Do you know that? We lean on a shovel and pray for a ditch to appear. And God has put the shovel in our hands. God has sent the rain so that man, Henry, a couple of weeks ago in my story, engineers a way to get under the umbrella next to Julia at the bus stop. God sends people into our lives, situations. Don't lean on shovels and pray for ditches. Be prepared to act in faith, to pray and plan, to pray and preach, to pray and give, to pray and build, to pray and send. Listen to John Piper. One of the reasons we must help each other hope in God, Psalm 42, verse 5, is that only hopeful people plan. Only hopeful people strategize. I feel a very special calling to impart hope to the church I serve. Churches that feel no hope develop a maintenance mentality and they just go through the motions year in, year out. But when a church feels the sovereign kindness of God hovering overhead and moving, hope starts to thrive. And righteousness ceases to be simply the avoidance of evil, and it becomes active, and it becomes strategic. Selfless in its care, beautiful in its bounty, active in its faith. The next two things to see, I want to speak about this marriage proposal in particular. I want to say two things here about this marriage proposal. Point number 4, life in the light is gendered in its patterns. Life in the light is gendered in its patterns. In other words, there are particular things for men to do and particular things for women to do. I want to suggest to you that there is beauty here for all of us, not so much in what Ruth does, as in what she asks Boaz to do. This is a request for marriage in chapter 3. Would you cover me with your wings? You'll see the footnote, would you spread the corner of your garment over me? I think in terms of the rest of the Bible, this is unusual. In the Bible, it is much more common for the man to ask another man for his daughter's hand in marriage. That's where it comes from. But it's worth acknowledging, isn't it, of all the romantic relationships that are represented here in this room this morning, I wonder how many of these relationships began by the initiative of the man, and how many began by the initiative of the woman. And in how many cases does the man think it was the man that initiated? But actually, now here, I don't think the gender pattern for us here is in the proposal itself as much as it is in the content of the proposal. The man is asked by the woman to be a refuge for the woman. That's the point. That's the point of the beautiful imagery. Spread your wings over me. Cover me. Be my shelter. I've heard about you, Ruth, Boaz says. You are the one who has taken shelter in the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. And now Ruth says to Boaz, would you do that for me? See, all the way through the book of Ruth, we're meant to see Boaz as the ideal man, the true man, the proper man. He loves God and he loves his neighbor. He blesses his workforce. He cares for the poor, the widow, the outcast, the alien. He is generous, he is kind, he is upright. And all of those things mean he can be a refuge for this woman. He can be a redeemer. Now we're going to think about that next week in particular, what that redeemer means. But it's important even here, the word is used, isn't it, several times. There it is in verse 9. You are a redeemer. Old Testament law said that if a man died leaving his widow without children, that's the situation Ruth and Naomi are in. If a man died leaving his widow without children, then the nearest male relative had to step in and marry his widow so that she could have children, and the children would then inherit the property of the man who had died. That's how Boaz is a refuge. He is a man to provide for the wider family and to protect it. I want to say to us, friends, here in this passage and today in our world, it should strike us as odd if this was the other way around. This is the right way around. There is a gender protection pattern. If the man said to the woman, would you protect me? Would you shelter me? I want to suggest to you that would be like saying at a dinner party as you're talking around the table, saying, last night my wife and I heard a strange noise downstairs at 3 a.m. and I sent her down to see what it was. No, you can have all the egalitarian thinking in the world, but there is something innate in male strength that is meant to be used for safety and for security. That is its proper use. Think about it. What do men work on in the gym? When men go to the gym, what do they work on? Arms. Arms, the place of strength. Men this morning, have you ever thought that the Bible tells you to do 3 things with your arms? 3 things. Number 1, provide. Number 2, protect. Number 3, pray. That's what God tells men to do, literally, with their arms. Men are to work to be a river to their family. Ephesians chapter 4, 1 Thessalonians 4, work with your own hands that you might have something to share with those in need. Men, you need to be givers, not takers. Protect, spread your wings over those closest to you. Your church, your wife, your kids. And use your hands to pray. 1 Timothy chapter 2, I want men everywhere to lift up holy hands in prayer. Because what do men tend to do with their hands? We use them to fight and to quarrel. I want men everywhere to lift up holy hands in prayer, not quarreling or fighting, Paul says. Men, we should be a benediction to those around us. Men of provision, men of protection, men of prayer. Our hands should be placed on those we know and love to bless them, to care for them, to protect them. I've been thinking a lot about this week. Are there any words more toxic today than patriarchy or masculinity? It's hard to get words that come close to bad words, isn't it, than those? Because we all know what can go wrong with those words. We all know. There's not a man in this room doesn't know what can go wrong with those words. Sadly, many women know only too well what goes wrong. But friends, the stench downriver is not a sign of corruption at source. No, it's the source we need to get back to. Do you know why one of the pillars outside Solomon's temple is called Boaz? Do you know why it was called that? Because the word Boaz means strength. And the other pillar was called Jachin, which means established. Strength and establishment here at the doors of God's house. Men, our job is to be the strength of our homes. That's what God calls us to do. Now, I want to build on this. The 5th thing to see, life in the light is deliberate in its righteousness. Gendered in its protection, gendered in its patterning. Life in the light is deliberate in its righteousness. You cannot read Ruth chapter 3 and not feel the sexual tension in the air. There is romance here and risk here. Verse 3, there is a bath. There's a splash of Chanel number 5. There is eating and drinking and lying down. There is the warmth of 2 bodies in the night. There is suspense and intrigue. And we're meant to read it all with anticipation. What will happen here? What way will this go? But something so beautiful happens. Listen to John Piper again, this time in a poem. He has a lovely poem on the whole book of Ruth. I pulled the blanket gently back, and there, as still as night, the black and piercing eyes of Ruth. My name is Ruth, she said. Your servant came because Naomi told me I should lie down at your feet, and by this action say you are akin to her, in hope that she may win your willingness to raise up seed to Mahlon, her first husband, if you are agreed. And now Boaz speaks. These are Naomi's words I hear. I know her mind, but not, I fear, her daughter's heart. This too I would be pleased to learn. I hope you could, besides this well-taught speech, reveal your own designs and how you feel about this prospect in your mind. Have you emotions unassigned? She lay there motionless, then said, "My heart's desire is that you spread your holy wing and cover me." Ah, your holy wing. That's right, friends. This word wing, if you look at the footnote, the word wing, it can also mean the corner of your garment. Spread your cloak over me. Do you know why it's beautiful? She uncovers Boaz in order to ask Boaz to cover her. Here is the greatest reason why neither Naomi nor Ruth nor Boaz, why none of them are acting improperly here. The woman uncovers the man in order to ask the man to cover her. This is not an invitation to sex. It is a request to be honored, to be protected, to be cherished in marriage. This is marriage first, then sex. It is public promise first, then private consummation. Her request is, lead me to the city gates, Boaz, not lead me to bed. Do you remember the words of John Piper I gave you at the start of the series? Sex is like a deep and powerful river. But every river needs banks, it needs walls to protect it. And what we have in the book of Ruth is the story of sex set within the high banks of righteousness. Boaz's righteousness, Ruth's righteousness. And because there are those walls, friends, in chapter 4, the river runs deep. Oh, the river runs so deep, it runs pure. But without banks, what happens to a river? It overflows. It goes everywhere. It creates havoc. It becomes muddy. It becomes shallow. Friends, behold what love can do. Behold what love can do. Godly love, real love can wait. It must wait. Verse 12, I think, probably hasn't struck many of us. Verse 12 is one of the most beautiful verses in the whole story. And now it is true that I am a redeemer. Yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. One of the most beautiful things about Boaz is his love for the law of God. That there is a redeemer nearer than I. Do you know what he's saying? He's saying, Ruth, here we are under the starlights. Everything about this feels right. Everything about this must be right. No, it is not yet right. Someone else could be here instead of me. Someone else should be here instead of me. Has the right to be here. I need to sort this out first. Brothers and sisters, life in the light turns no blind eye to anything. Life in the light sweeps no details of God's law under the carpet, under the nighttime garments. Life in the light is deliberate in its pursuit of righteousness. Can I urge you now today, young man, young woman, all of us, friends, sitting here together, single man, single woman, married man, married woman, can I urge us to be deliberate in our pursuit of righteousness? I love you, and because I love the God of loyal love, I will love you this way, not that way. That there are things we will not do yet, places we will not go yet, steps we will take to not get there yet. Life in the light is deliberate in its pursuit of righteousness. I want to finish with this. Number 6. Life in the light points to the light. Life in the light points to light. Do you know how you know Ruth knows the Lord? Do you remember chapter 1? How do we know Ruth has come to know the Lord? Chapter 1, verse 16, because she looks like the Lord. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people should be my people. Your God, my God. Him for me for you. She looks like him. How do you know Boaz knows the Lord? He looks like him. Chapter 2, verse 20, Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, may he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead. They look like him. Listen to Sinclair. Those who knew Boaz even a little would know that his God must be a God of tenderness and compassion, a God of great sweetness and gentleness in his righteous dealings with his children. We cannot hide what we believe God is really like. Our personal disposition is an unending expression of all our understanding of and trust in his character. How we live, how we respond to challenges, crises, trials, those things reveal what we really believe about God, what we really think deep down about him. You could look at Ruth and Boaz and see the Lord. I sometimes think, I wonder what people who know me think God is like. It's so profoundly challenging, isn't it? People look at us and learn what God is like from us. Well, Dale Ralph Davis says Boaz has given Ruth a sense. He's given Ruth a taste, a sample, a sketch of what the living God is like. She's looked at him and seen God. It's what it means to belong to him, to point others to him. Friends, this morning, I think Boaz is pointing us to God better than he knew. He was doing more. He was saying more than he even knew. Next week, it is all about Boaz the Redeemer. But just look at that lovely phrase again in verse 12. And now it is true that I am a Redeemer, yet there is a Redeemer nearer than I. Isn't that lovely? Yet there is a Redeemer nearer than I. Of course, Boaz is talking about that fellow, what's his name, up the road, who's got a closer connection to the family than he has. He's talking about the guy we all hope isn't going to turn up and spoil the story. Yet, isn't it more than that? More than Boaz could even imagine, that there is a Redeemer nearer than him? Oh, how much nearer? Could Boaz have ever grasped, friends, that the greatest example of God's loving kindness, God sticking with the stuck, wasn't left to Boaz or Ruth to show us, but that one day he would come himself to be with the stuck and to show us his steadfast love face to face, in person, in Jesus, his Son? Friends, it's why the Bible calls Jesus, well, we all know this, don't we? It's why the Bible calls Jesus our Redeemer. But why is he our Redeemer? How can he be our Redeemer? Answer, because he is your brother. He is your brother. Romans chapter 8, Jesus is the firstborn among many brothers. Hebrews chapter 2, Jesus is not ashamed to call you his brother. Hebrews chapter 2, he had to be made like his brothers in every respect. Selfless care, active faith, gendered relating, deliberate righteousness. And yet here we sit together this morning, each single one of us with pasts. Well, I've put my arms out loads this morning, haven't I, to show the wings. Each of us sit here with pasts as long as our arms. We all do. Really, David, you say? Me being sheltered? I feel like something the cat has dragged in. If these people really knew me, if they knew what I was like. No, behold what love can do. It's dark in the Bible when Christmas is spoken. Always a bolt from the blue for the broken. It's the valley of shadow, the land of the dead. It's no place in the inn, so he stoops to the shed. He's born to the shameful. He bends to the weak. He becomes the lowly, the God who can't speak. And yet, what a word, this Savior who comes. Our dismal, abysmal depths he plumbs. Through crib and then cross, to compass our life, to carry and conquer, our brother in strife. He became what we are. Our failures he shouldered to bring us to his life, forever enfolded. He took on our frailty. He took on all comers to turn all our winters to glorious summers. Behold, behold what love can do. Amen. Well, we're going to sing